Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today, where we're excited to discuss transitioning to self-service analytics by adding dashboard narratives. And this is the first webinar in a series of 3 with Deloitte. My name is Brian Zwallen. I'm the SVP of Customer Success and Partner Relations at Arria and LG, and I'll be your host for this event. So our agenda is going to kick off a little bit with context around who we are as individual professionals and organizations. And we'll discuss our solution to empower your organization with actionable insights to facilitate faster decision making. We'll have a conversation with a super panel of experts around intelligent automation and AI. And then finally, we'll close out with some time for Q&A. So let me introduce our panel. I'm really excited about this group. So as you scan their background info, you're going to see this common thread of AI, NLG, and intelligent automation. And I'll start off on the left side of the screen. My colleague, he's based in Berlin, Germany. He's the Chief Product Officer at Arria and co-founder. So welcome to the program, Ross.
Hi, Brian. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Great. Also thrilled to have on this program here a fellow I've been working with. He's helped us to bring several solutions for our customers to production. You can see his title, Senior Manager, Intelligent Automation and NLG Lead. You can see he's got some background also in conversational AI, which is exciting. So Stefan, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Ross, and hi to everybody.
Great, also based in Germany. And also based in Germany, you can see on the right side of the screen, and I've got to actually make some adjustments so I can see my screens. Great. So you can see the partner at Deloitte working in AI as a service, also robotics and intelligent automation. You can see he's an expert in artificial intelligence. Welcome to the program, Peter.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Great pleasure.
It's a pleasure. So they're all based in Germany, but Ross, your accent doesn't quite match.
No, yeah, I'm originally from Scotland, Brian. That's right, yeah.
All right, so let's just talk a little bit about Arria and LG and Deloitte. So Arria is the recognized global leader in natural language generation, or NLG. NLG is an artificial intelligence technology in that it replicates the human process of expertly analyzing data and then communicating the knowledge that it learns about the data. So Arria has the highest amount of NLG expertise that is led by our chief scientists, Dr. Ehud Reiter and Dr. Yaji Shlipada, who are 2 of the leading figures internationally in the NLG space. And then I'm just thrilled again to have our partner on the program today. Deloitte has implemented our solution, like I said, to many of our enterprise customers globally. They have world-class expertise and eminence in analytic reporting. And it's this partnership that enables us to provide to you the best-in-class reporting solutions. And NLG does, this robotic task of writing reports, right? So you can free up your experts on more valuable tasks, and that's how you gain operational efficiencies, as well as being able to scale your reporting, right? So now you can automate that reporting so that you can do more of those reports, right? Or even more frequently, you can send those reports out, as well as giving speed to the information. So you can connect NLG directly to data sources and then have, let's say, automation around thresholds where it might send out some kind of notification to your users, or you can actually tie it to a dashboard so you can always see your data up to date and get the expert analytics. And what's driving all of this is ARRI and LG Studio. And this is the heart and soul of our solution. It uses powerful computational linguistics and advanced analytics. So it's basically an analyst in the box, right? And so this slide here shows you our flexible architecture where you connect through a RESTful API to your data source, and it passes the data securely through an encrypted tunnel where then Studio is going to analyze that data. It's going to flush the cache, then it's going to pass the data back down through an encrypted tunnel to any presentation layer of your choice, right? That could be an email, it could be a Word document, or back into a dashboard. And we have a vision of NLG everywhere. So we're trying to make it easier for you to access NLG, and we've developed several integrations along the way. And so for instance, we have integrations with the top BI dashboards like Power BI, Tableau, Click, MicroStrategy, and TIBCO. Also, we have integration with Excel because that's not going anywhere. You can have analytics embedded right back into your spreadsheet. So we're going to get into this conversation. All right, so I'm going to first talk about data literacy, and Gartner defines data literacy as the ability to create and understand and then communicate the knowledge of the data. So that's much like literacy in a general concept. And they're predicting in 2 years that literacy will become a necessary driver of business value. So I think I'm going to direct my first question to you, Stefan, because I know you're out there in the field. You know, you're where the rubber meets the road, they say. You're talking to customers, prospects. You're helping them wrangle their data, all with the end goal in mind to capitalize on their analytics. So what are some of the challenges that your customers see when they're looking to become data literate?
Yeah, so thanks, Brian. So yeah, just looking at what we see really out at our clients. So today, data is not a rare source of or rare number. Data is really everywhere, and it's increasing. So the amount of data is ever increasing, and it becomes more and more difficult for people to really get the right information out of data. So it's not, from my perspective, it's not about data. It's about deriving the right information for decision making out of this data to drive the business forward. So that's the first part. In line with this, we see that today analyzing data is a really specific kind of skill which is usually, for example, in controlling departments with people who have a specific skill set, but with the need to decentralize decision making in new modern organizations, it becomes more and more necessary that also people who are not experts in data analytics are capable of deriving the right information of data. And specifically, these people are not so comfortable sometimes with interpretation of graphs, visualizations, or tables, and therefore narratives can help. Finally, especially this need to prepare data in a digestible format to make it available for everybody. It's currently a big challenge, and currently in many organizations pooled as a more centralized place, and that needs to change from my perspective in the future.
Yeah, so you have that understanding there around that. Then what is an approach? How do we enable data literacy? I don't know, Peter, maybe you can help us with that.
Yeah, so I think that there are some key components in that. The first one is actually to create the transparency where the data comes from, how it was collected, because you need to understand whether there are potential limitations in the data, biases, and so on. So you need to have that transparency, and that actually is enabled. And then it's another criterion in itself, breaking down the silos of different sources of data. If you can enable to have a single source of truth, and this has been around for 25 years or so, all the time I have been in business, this was always the goal. And as there's more and more data coming up, this is always again on the priority list for many companies. So transparency and making sure that there's a single source of truth. The third item is to enable really the organization. So to provide the training, to provide the tools that people can really understand how to access the data, how to transform it, how to manage it, how to work with all that data. And these are basically like the foundational requirements. And then you need to understand what is the best way to communicate the information that is included in the data that you can really work with and communicate with. And for this, basically you need a combination of the visualization, and I think all of us have been engaged in this for quite a while. Then you need to provide the ability to access also the raw data, which is typically in tables. But then the key thing to be added to that is really the narrative that is created out of that data and basically guides human users, because we are obviously all the users of that information, to be basically go in a self-service mode and go through that data on your own. And then the key thing to really scaling that self-service reporting, as this becomes more and more relevant, it's important that everybody who uses the data can easily understand what is the relevant information out of it. And of course, a narrative, a written interpretation of that data, not just pure numbers, helps. And then you can really, as a decision maker, or even as someone who just needs to make a decision for yourself, what to do next, you can really act upon that data without asking a bunch of people for explanations, because the explanation, obviously, in almost all cases, lies in the data, in part at least. And of course, you can add to that your experience to make it really relevant for whatever decision, big or small, you need to make. And I think if you can bring all of that together, then you have really the necessary data literacy in your organization, or even just for yourself as a person.
I love that idea of self-service reporting. We all have our phones with us, our smartphones, and we're used to placing lunch orders and having that delivered to us, or we call a car to get to the airport. So in data forms, what is self-service reporting? What does that look like?
Yeah, maybe I quickly respond on this topic. So what we see, as you already mentioned, and Peter also mentioned, it's really important that everybody who needs information is becoming familiar with how to analyze data. So providing the right tools really to enable people to deep dive into data, and the tool itself, and that's from my perspective what we expect all from self-service. The tool itself should be able to explain data to you, to guide you through the data, and really focus you on the most relevant parts of the information, to make it easy for you to digest data, to drive decisions, without, as Peter already mentioned, the need to call your controller for each and every piece of data, but really to focus also your controllers on doing the crucial and complex analytics, which will not be done by any tool. So there's a certain limitation where there are so specific in the data where your controller needs to help you. And that's exactly where you can free up your controller also from these kind of questions which are redundant, and really focus the persons in developing the right measures to drive your business and your performance forward. So it's really about people who can do the analytics by themselves without the need to ask all the usual questions that should be answered by the tool which they use for self-service.
Yes. So Ross, how does NLG impact data literacy? And how does it also help this concept of self-service insights?
Yeah, so absolutely. So, I mean, narrative is a natural way for humans to communicate. And if, we take that question and we split it into two. So first of all, how does it impact the data literacy? So NLG is a technology enabler, provides that communication and context aspect of data literacy, right? So it provides a consistent explanation of model output, of tables and graphs, and that consistency provides a common understanding amongst end users and a consistent message to stakeholders. So that's how NLG impacts data literacy. And if your workforce is more data literate, as we've also talked a bit about already, they're able to ask the right questions of the data. They're able to better understand and interpret results. They're able to test the hypothesis more effectively, and that ultimately leads to more clear and consistent story, which can be communicated to stakeholders throughout the organization. So that's the data literacy part. And then how does that then enable self-service insights? So NLG, if we can augment visuals and BI tools. The first part of this is really it can increase user adoption and retention of dashboards, obviously then enhancing their value and the overall ROI on the investment they put into these tools, the companies put into these tools. So that's the first part. The next part of this is then once you have that clearer explanation of insights and consistent messaging, you've got more confidence in localized decision making. So that's the next part of it. And then finally, as I've already mentioned, it really helps to ensure that there's consistent dissemination of knowledge throughout the organization and really improves the quality of decision making. So just, probably just to make, another point, so, Gartner have recently cited, NLG as a core capability of BI tools now. So this is going to be a key technology moving forward. And as everybody likes to look at graphs and visuals, there is research out there that shows, people make better decisions based on a combination of narrative and graphs.
Yeah. And Stefan, why would you say narrative is so important when you're analyzing data?
Yeah. Looking at the way how we communicate, already since ever, we are communicating by written text. So that's the way how we best bring it, because the written text also contextualizes information. So data in itself has not a context. So it's just data, it's just numbers, but the text helps giving a context to these data, and therefore drives also the understanding. So people are easily able to understand, because that's the usual way how you read, you gather information. So you start reading your newspaper in the morning. So that's a really typical way to get it. And looking here at this dashboard, what we see. So the narrative here really adds additional context to the data, so that as a combination of these tools, it really helps people to understand the storyline. It is consistent and comprehensible on the one hand side, and also you can use the narrative, and that's marked here, for example, in red, with driving alerts to people. So to really focus on, okay, there's something wrong, there is something you need to look at, because you need to act there. And this is all embedded in the narrative, so that people can naturally read the full text and then get focused on where to dig deeper into the analysis. And finally, helps them also to make better decisions in the end, as the understanding for data and information is there. And just as a spoiler, so how to embed it in this kind of dashboards will be part of the second webinar. So just spoiling a bit here. And finally, what we see here is that it's two levers: it's insights and efficiency, which can be driven by utilizing NLG.
Yeah, absolutely. So then maybe, Peter, we could talk about use cases. What use cases do you see most often with NLG that's helping to achieve data literacy?
Yeah, so we have highlighted them here, and I think there was also a question in the chat on going deep into use cases. That will actually happen in the next two instances of this series. But to give everybody a glimpse of what is possible and what we have not only seen, but actually helped clients implement, and actually also implemented within our own organization, because we are firm believers in eating our own dog food, or others would say drinking our own champagne. So the self-service dashboarding, to start on the top left-hand side there, that's actually a very strong use case, because you can use it for many different things. You can use it for your financial performance reporting, so around your profit and loss statement. You can use it for your sales teams in their reporting, or we have also seen it in situations like IT incident reporting, where this provided very, very useful information, because the key benefit of including narrative in dashboards is that, of course, people, when using the dashboard, they change the point of view, they slice and dice with the data, and the explanations and the further information coming out of the narrative is dynamic and basically provides explanations to deviations, to performance drivers, and this is all coming in a very digestible and natural form, because you do not need to study the numbers in great depth and then make your own findings out of that. Basically, the narrative points you to the key topics to consider. So that's one example. Let's move counterclockwise to the second area here, which is the recurring business reporting.
Yeah.
So here, it's basically it's a different scenario. You can use that for cost center reporting, for status updates of different lines of business or different business units. It could be an HR reporting for line managers, all those things. And here it's basically around lowering the effort for the manager, line manager, whoever is a recipient of the information of the report, to lower the effort in the reporting and basically adapt what people are seeing, which is numbers, tables, numbers, to basically what they need to be alerted to. So this can be a great add-on to those, let's say, regular reportings. You could not employ a whole force of controllers that basically create that narrative the whole time. But if you can add it, it is a huge add-on for the recipients. So that's basically a very different benefit there. And then if we move on, legal and statutory reporting, that's in the bottom right here. That could be any external reporting, any regulatory reporting like Solvency II or something like that, or also something that is around fraud detection and all those things. And here you can basically get another benefit, because the NLG here offers you a standardized and structured solution to really easily replicate the same reports and basically saving resources. Because if you need to do those externally requested reportings all the time, then you can basically make them more useful for the recipient without spending extra resources, because it's basically a repeating activity, and again, having the resources sitting there preparing the narrative around those numbers would be, let's say, rather a waste of time, or let's put it in a more positive way. This time can be invested in a much better way for the benefit of your own company, and maybe even for the recipient, if there is additional information that could be provided on top of the pure numbers and the story the numbers tell. And maybe Stefan, on the last item, top right here, the innovative reporting channels, you can chime in.
Yeah, so thanks, Peter. And I think that's also an important area to look at. So basically, when we are talking about reporting, we are talking about, you can look something up on a screen, you have a piece of paper, a PDF document you can read. But and that's what we did also with clients already. So there are people who are, for example, driving, so sales representatives driving to their customers, and for them it's quite difficult just to look data while the person is driving because of safety reasons. But if you think about how to really present the information to these persons, for example, it is great to create a podcast based on the NLG prepared report, because then a narrative is the only way really to bring the information across. There's no other way to do it in an audio way, kind of way. And therefore, these kind of innovative reporting channels become more and more prominent, because people are busy, people are running around everywhere. And how do we reach this kind of people? and therefore, for example, this kind of podcast is one good solution to make it happen, and to use the time where people are not really productive while driving somewhere, to give them the information which they need once they arrive at their customers, for example.
Yeah,
and maybe to add to that idea of the podcast, it's basically an on-demand podcast. It's nothing that needs to be prepared and pre-recorded hours or days in advance. Basically, you can wake up in the morning and demand it, and then it's probably delivered within a few minutes before you enter your car, and then you can go and basically consume information in a completely different way, and basically allows you to basically increase the value of the time that you spend on your commute or on your break, etc. And this can be a great addition to like the regular flow of reporting that any decision maker anyway gets.
And especially for this part, I really invite you to the third part of the webinar series. There we will deep dive more into this topic, how these innovative solutions can look like, and then integrated solutions.
yeah, we're looking forward to that too, because you guys are having some great ideas and great discussions around that. So we did see a couple questions pop up in the chat. So we can start addressing some of these questions. Again, the use case we're going to touch on in another series. In fact, the next series, we're going to see a live demo, which is really exciting. One question I have here, is there a one-pager about finance reporting using Arria and LG? And I'm going to just shift over to a web page and show you some resources that we have on our website. So if you go to arria.com/resource-library, you're going to see some of those one-pagers, those white papers to kind of explain these things. Great. And another question, is this video available to watch later? And yes, so this will be, this is being recorded. This will be posted to a webpage. Let me see if I bring it up, arria.com/webinars. Great. And you go to that, and then you're going to see upcoming webinars. And then you'll see another button in here for on demand to see some of the previously recorded webinars. So we got upcoming webinars. You can see more in the series, and then we have on demand webinars where you'll see the recordings.
And I think to add to that, it's needless to say, we are all happy to receive your connections on LinkedIn or the similar networks to reach out and discuss in more detail if that's desired. But of course, yeah, happy to receive any more questions in the remaining minutes that we have.
Thanks for that, Peter. So I'm going to point out that we actually have a page here if you want to get connected also, whether it's through LinkedIn, as you mentioned, or you can fill out this form and we can reach out to you directly to speak about your use case. I'm going to post this directly in the chat window so that you can get this and click on this page. Okay, so a question came out from the audience here. It says, is the NLG focused on describing what is already there, or can it do insights? They didn't say or can it do. Ross, can you see that question?
Let me just double check, Brian. Sorry, I'm a bit.
Yep. It says, is NLG focused on describing what is already there? Can it do insights?
Right. Well, I mean, I think I would just, maybe rephrase the question a little bit. I mean, is it purely descriptive, or can it also be prescriptive? And I think the simple answer is it can be both. And we have a large ecosystem, I think, that we showed at the beginning of different tooling and integrations. And we've got extensive custom capabilities as well. So customization is a big feature of the platform. And yeah, absolutely. It can be both descriptive and prescriptive.
That's great. And so I think, Stefan, you could really field this next question. It says, what advice would you give to a team looking to invest in NLG? How would you get started? Right, that's what you do.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And there, first of all, for me, getting started is select the right use case, which should not be the most complex one you have in mind. Select a medium complex use case, start small and quick, and then scale up on this use case. So that's one topic I really would advise on it. So it is as easy as you can start with your first use case in a project consisting of 4 to 6 weeks, a bit depending on how detailed the information is, really to get started quickly. And the other thing in getting started here is put your recipient of the information in the middle of your design to get started quickly, so that you know what kind of information does your recipient need, because it's irrelevant what you think the person needs. Put the person really who needs and should receive the data in the middle of all your design activities, so that they get the information required, and so they start using and adapting to the tool itself.
Yeah, and I think I might add to that is, the BI platform is a really good place to start, because your data is, if you have an existing dashboard, your data has already been wrangled together. You've done all that data modeling. All we're doing now is we're adding our extension, our custom visualization into the dashboard. And then you can capitalize on the data that's been already modeled. Yeah. And to I want to piggyback off of another question somebody asked about, how does it narrate the visuals in the dashboard? So basically, our tool will actually look at all of the underlying data. So if you have like a data model with 10 different tables inside there, NLG can look across all those tables to see if there's any correlations. We had a CPG customer that was selling suntan lotion, and they supplied us with sales data, and then the supply chain information, and then some weather information to see how it all tied together. Stefan, I got another one for you, or Peter, if one of you want to answer this one. How do we ensure that our business drivers are reflected in the narrative?
Yeah, so I pick it up first, and Peter, happy to that you can add here. So especially that's part of the design I already mentioned. So it's not about starting directly into preparing the narrative into your dashboard. It's more about spending a short amount of time to conceptualize what you want to achieve. How does your KPI driver logic look like? Because that needs to be reflected in the design, so that you really, first of all, show all the relevant KPIs and drivers to the recipient of your report. And finally, also, you are able to analyze the drivers in connection to the KPIs, so that you know which of the drivers cause some deviations in your KPI. So really focusing on the right information and connecting it. So that's the modeling which you do before implementing the narrative itself.
Yeah, and maybe to add to that, of course, the NLG does not create miracles. It works along the business logic and the data it has. So if the business logic is missing or the data is missing, of course, you cannot interpret it. A human could come up with a storyline, and this would not be supported by data. And honestly, this is not what we all want. We want to have a clear analysis, a clear narrative driven by data and supported by data, because then you get the results and basically the acceptance amongst the recipients of all that information. So I think that's very important, not to expect a miracle to happen just because you are basically adding an NLG engine to your reporting landscape.
Yeah. In a sense, that's really good, right? Because it can give you, NLG will give you an unbiased report of what's happening.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a great question in here. I think this is a business kind of question. Is how do you measure the impact of NLG in dashboards?
That's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I can maybe lead off on that one, Brian. I mean, I talked a little bit about it earlier, right? I mean, it's really about, user adoption and retention. So, I mean, this is one way you can definitely measure this, right? I mean, just pure logins and, the time spent using the dashboard by your users. This is something you can directly measure. Then there's also more qualitative things like Net Promoter Score, etc. Right? So that's just a few of the things you can do to measure the impact.
And another part where you could measure the impact is, for example, that's one example. If you look at the cost center reporting, which is accompanied by a narrative, for example, you just can send you can do A/B testing. Just send it to one part of the company without a narrative, the other half with a narrative, and try to measure how the actions and the impact on the results look like.
Yeah. All right. I have a longer question here. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. How unstructured, complex can the data be to best leverage the benefits of NLG? Does a lot of ETL data cleansing need to be done on the source beforehand? I'm not sure who wants to tackle that one.
So,
Yeah,
I can start. I think part of that question refers to the discussion we had much earlier on, that ideally you have a clear path of data sources. Maybe it's not one single source that you have, but a clear, let's say, pyramid of data and how you access it. And so in that sense, you need structure. And maybe Ross or Stefan, you can add to that how within one data source the flexibility is towards the data structure, if it is all within, let's say, the business model that you have defined at the outset.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I mean, there's a number of different ways we can approach this, and sometimes a lot of pre-processing can be done outside the tooling. Obviously, if you're integrating with dashboards, you already have a data model there. But for example, you can feed in the output of a model, for example, or you could inject the NLG engine as part of a feedback loop, for example. There's a number of different options. It can tend to be bespoke, dependent on the actual data source. But I think this is something that, for example, Stefan, Peter, your teams are very adept at figuring out very quickly the key KPIs that need to be communicated, etc.
Yeah. Great. Question is, does Arria run on the user's machine or on a server? Maybe Ross, you want to comment on that one?
Yeah, so I can take that one. So it runs on a server, and I think Brian, at the beginning of the discussion, you had a slide there with the flexible architecture. So the data is encrypted in transit. As we mentioned, processed on the server, caches are flushed, and the narrative is returned to the client. So there's no data stored on the server, but we have a number of different and flexible deployment models. So that could be customer hosted, it could be private cloud, or it could be public cloud if that's what the client needs.
Very good.
And maybe adding to this, I think this kind of flexibility is something which really many clients like, because they can decide how sensitive the data is and what their compliance rules require, where the hosting should take place.
Right. And just reminding everyone, you're hearing a lot of these questions. There's a panel on the right side of your screen. If you didn't notice it before, that's where you can type these questions in. We've gotten through quite a few of them. And just wondering if there's any other questions while we're waiting for another question here. I do want to point out that, again, there's other webinars coming up, and you can register for those other webinars. That, again, I have on the screen ready to show you. I'm going to put this. Yep, this is our registration page. I'm going to put this in the chat window. Why don't you go ahead and click on this? And you can get set up for the next one.
And this will be we really going into a live demo of the tool that you can see all the capabilities, all the added value, which NLG can bring to your finance dashboard and make it talking to you.
Do you want to just give a high overview of what that dashboard is?
So I can quickly do. So basically, it's about a P&L dashboard for metrics organization, and this has the different KPIs which are most relevant to these organizations, as well as different horizons, so monthly and year-to-date views, as well as different views on data, like comparison to previous year, as well as to business plan, and their energy helps highlighting from the different perspectives where people need to dig deeper into it and ask the right questions to the business units, to the people who are responsible for certain product groups, for example, or for certain geographies. So that's where we will deep dive into.
Yeah, I've seen it. I love it. I think it's great. This looks like the questions are slowing down, so I'm not sure if the audience has any other questions. I don't know if anybody wants to close with any statements. If not, we're okay to end this session. And I'm just looking around. Okay, so it looks like we're ready to end our session today. So thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy day. I know how busy people can be. Again, we're going to have the series. We've given you links inside the chat. Why don't you go ahead and register for that? I gave you a link to connect with us as well, or you can connect in through our any social media platform that we're on. So again, thank you for attending, and be safe. Have a great rest of your day, wherever you're located.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to our panel of experts.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having us here.
It's my pleasure.